Hiya, it's Brendan here from Shanti Warrior Yoga, doing the first video of a series of 8 of yoga classes. First things first, what are you going to need? Well, you're going to need a mat, if you have one, okay? Or if you don't, get a long towel, beach towel, yeah? Something like that. Get it set up like so that when you lie down, you're able to see the screen of your device, whatever you're using, by turning your head to the side without having to lift your head off the floor. Okay? Next thing you're going to need some props, right? Now, everybody has cushions, right? Or hopefully, most people do anyway, have cushions or pillows, right? So, you'll need 6 props, right? So, what I've got here is 4 cushions and 2 yoga blocks. Now if you have yoga blocks, grab them, use them, right? 6 of something, so 2 yoga blocks and 4 cushions, right? Now, and also what else you're going to need is, you're going to need a belt of some sort, yeah? Okay, let me just sort all that stuff out. So you'll need a belt, right? Now I'll come closer to show you this. Do you have a yoga belt? If you do, brilliant. If you don't worry. Do you have a dressing gown? I bet that has a belt around it. Well, most of them, a lot of them do anyway, right? So if you have a dressing gown with a belt, take the belt off that and we can use that, right? So you might want to hit pause here and go and grab all your stuff and then come back, all right? So whenever you're ready, you're going to be lying down onto your mat or your towel. If you don't have any of those things, don't worry, you can just lie on the floor, but have something, carpeted floor if you can, something that's nice. You might want a blanket as well, guys, by the way, because we're going to do a bit of relaxation here today. So you might want a blanket as well, and a few, wear layers. You might want to wear a layer, and then you might want to take it off. It's always good to have the option without having to jump up and do it. So wear layers when you're doing your practice. That means you can take them off when you get warmer. You can add them when you feel colder. Have a blanket with you. Make this part of your kit, and then every time you come to do the yoga, you have all the stuff, right? So 6 props of some sort. A mat or a towel or something, right? Something comfortable to lie on, yeah? And you're gonna have a belt, okay? Whether it's a yoga belt or it's a dressing gown belt, that's okay. You could use like another kind of cotton clothes belt, couldn't you? It's the same thing really, as long as it doesn't have buckles that are gonna dig into you, that's the thing. Okay, so when you're lying down, first of all, you've got options. Let's start lying with the legs bent first of all. So bend the legs first of all and allow yourself to have the feet just a bit wider than your hips. Okay, with the knees going in towards each other like a TP, yeah? And the toes are pointed in towards each other as well here. So you feel a bit of a stretch on the outside of your hips. Now this is often better, this is often the better option of how to lie down if you have lower back issues. Now I say often because there's, it's never as simple as you should definitely do this. What looks good for one person is not going to necessarily feel good for you. So you're going to have to play around with this and learn to be your own teacher a little bit, right? So I'm going to give you some tools to play around with and use. You're going to apply those tools as it feels best to you. You're going to be your own best teacher. I can't be as good a teacher for you as you can be for you. What I can do is introduce you to some tools to use, and then we work as a team together. I'll show you how to use those tools. You apply them as and when that feels good, with as much pressure and as much effort as feels good to you. Okay, so that's the ground rules, right? Good. Mild discomfort is what we're after with our practice. Doesn't sound good, does it? Mild discomfort, but if you want to achieve anything worthwhile, there has to be a certain amount of stepping outside of your comfort zone, but it's mild. Anything beyond mild discomfort is like a punishment, isn't it? So it's kind of like glass half full and half empty, that kind of way of describing it, isn't it? Are you going to focus on the discomfort element, or are you going to focus on the mild bit, right? So it's not a threat this, where you're not in a dangerous position. Switch your mind from thinking that this is a threat and something to be afraid of, to this is a challenge and an opportunity to grow and to become stronger. Okay, and if you do that, you're going to start to change your mindset. Okay, and then you'll start being less afraid and less closed up, because what happens here affects what happens here through this body, okay? So change the mindset. This is not a threatening thing. If you do feel anxious about doing this, right, sit and watch it with a cup of tea or a coffee and a couple of biscuits or something for the first time, maybe 2 or 3 times till you feel confident with it. And then when you do, well, then you can do it again, and it's like, it's something familiar to you then, right? So that's another way around it. If you feel that if this is a little bit overwhelming, trying to jump into this, first time, just watch it. Yeah, get used to what I'm talking about, get used to me, to hearing my voice, and then we'll do it together. You'll know what to expect, okay? All right, so it's up to you whether you're actually doing this now or you're just watching it. That's up to you, okay? Good, all right, so whenever we're lying down, when you do choose to do it, knees bent to begin with, see how that is, okay? If you want to try a different way, straighten those legs or let those feet be almost mat distance apart. I'm going to turn around again to change the angle. I'll change the angles every so often so you get a different perspective on this, guys, right? And that doesn't mean that I want you to change around. It means that I'm just giving you a different perspective. Unless I say to you, switch yourself around 90 degrees, then you're going to stay where you are while I do this, okay? All right, so look at the feet here. When I've got my legs extended, the feet are almost mat distance apart. Probably a little bit wider than your hips. You can play around with it, make it a little bit more narrow, a little bit closer together. Let the feet roll out to the side, the hips roll open. Okay, good. So, from here, remember that there's no magic number of breaths that you're supposed to be doing. There's no correct speed to do this at. Okay, it's just about you finding your way with this, okay? So, when we're lying down here, let's have a little check. Can you do what I call a floor angel, right? Can you reach around you here and see, like you would do a snow angel if there was snow outside? Right, we're trying to do that. I mean, maybe you would never do that, right? But you might have seen people do snow angels, right? Okay, and so when we're doing this, make sure that you ideally have enough space to reach those arms straight behind you. Now, if not, can you shift around and find a place where you are? Okay, maybe we don't all have that space, that's okay. But just be aware of what the obstructions are so you're not going to knock anything over unexpectedly. Okay? So when you've done that, breathe. Get your hands on your belly. Okay, and as you inhale, you're rounding the stomach out and you're softening the belly like a balloon. And as you exhale, you're drawing the belly button back in towards the spine. I'm going to come closer to the camera here to demonstrate to you what I'm talking about. You stay where you are though, yeah? Okay, so I'm coming closer to show you a bit more about the abdominal breathing and the technique behind that, right? So if I turn side on, hopefully you'll see it a bit better. So when you inhale, round the stomach, get a happy Buddha belly. Don't be afraid to appear to have a belly. It's a superficial fear. Get beyond that, right? We're not here for superficial stuff. We're going deeper than that. And as you exhale, pull the belly button back in. Now when you've pulled the belly in as much as you can, touch your middle fingers just below your belly button, your navel here if you can. So then when you inhale, you round the stomach out. So those fingers separate. And as you exhale, you draw the belly button back in until those middle fingertips touch. Now close your eyes while you're doing that and try and connect to how that feels. How does it feel to slow the breath down? How does it feel in the body to do that? You slow down the breath, you can slow down the heart rate. And as you slow down the heart rate, you can slow down those internal processes, right? And including those thought processes that might have been swinging from one thing to the other. Right? There's always 101 other things you could be doing. Right? But this is the thing, you have to get to the place where you start to recognize that there's nothing else you have to be doing right now. There's nowhere else you need to be. Right? Because you've given yourself permission to be here. You've made the commitment to be here with this, haven't you? Okay, so be here now. You deserve a rest as much as anybody else does, okay? All right, so when you start to realize that, you can look after people in a long-term sense only when you start to look after yourself first. You're no use to anybody else or yourself if you're burnt out, are you? Okay, so breathing, first of all, that's all. Inhale. Exhale. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that. Give your brain a break from all that visual noise that you're trying to process. You might not realize it, but there's millions, if not billions, of bits of information that come at you at any one moment through the eyes. So just closing the eyes. You know, sometimes you just need to close your eyes and just take a rest, don't you? You know, if you're really exhausted, you might even just, you know, put your head in your hands and do that, wouldn't you? Well, that's because it stops you from having to process so much through the eyes. Okay? All right? So there's a lot of work going on just by letting yourself lie down. Actually, you're replenishing, you're breathing. It might look to somebody else like you're just lying there doing nothing, but who cares what it looks like to somebody else? You can start to feel better if you let yourself be with it. Okay, so on your next inhale, I want you to feel the rounding of the stomach like a balloon, stretching those abdominal muscles, giving the digestive organs somewhere to go so the diaphragm can move down and away from the lungs. Lungs expand down as well as up and forwards and backwards and to the sides. And then as you exhale, you're drawing the belly button back in. You're using those abdominal muscles to push the digestive organs back in. That's going to push the diaphragm to the lungs. The lungs get squeezed from the bottom to the top to get rid of stale air and carbon dioxide and stress and tension and stuff you don't need. So when you're inhaling, it's that good stuff that you're welcoming back in again, and it's oxygen, it's prana as it's known in yoga, vitality, right? And this is what it means then to revitalize, to connect to the vital energy that's always around you, that's always within. Now, you might need to adjust, you might need to shift around a little bit, you might need to play around, have a yawn or a sigh or a groan, and anytime you want to do that, please do, right? Even if I could hear you, I'd take it as a compliment, whether you meant it that way or not, so don't worry about it, it's good. You're switching from being in fight, flight or freeze mode to rest and digest mode, and that's good. Where you're starting to metabolize, you're starting to use the stuff that you have within, starting to literally process and get ready to relieve what you don't, right? We don't like talking about that kind of stuff, do we? But we can't be squeamish when we're talking about the body, right? You know, if you've ever had seriously trapped wind or constipation, you know that's no joke, right? So breathing in this way can help with those kind of things. Maybe that doesn't apply to you, but might apply to somebody else who you know, and you can pass this on to them, right? So, okay, we're taking these breaths. Remember that just because you started off one way doesn't mean you have to carry on that way. It's like if you go traveling down a road and you realize, oh, this is the wrong way, you wouldn't just go, okay, well, oh well, throw your hands up and kind of keep on driving in that direction because that's the way you started off, right? Same thing with the practice. If you start off in one way and you feel like you need to change, well then you can do. In other words, if you started off with your legs bent and you feel like you want to straighten them, do that. If the legs were straight, you can slowly and gradually bend it. But when you're doing it, push your hands down into the floor, your palms down into the floor by the sides of the body. Now guys, you could have your hands on your belly or on your hips. You could have the arms further up, the hands further up the torso if you wanted, or the arms could be on the floor, palms rolling towards the sky. We're taking it really gentle today, right? This is the introduction to the basics, right? But there's nothing wrong with basics. Basics is not a dirty word, right? Get the basics right. Everything else becomes at least a little bit easier after that, doesn't it? So in other words, breathe first, right? And you know, you understand, it makes sense, that doesn't it, that if you could breathe more easily, everything else becomes a little bit easier. Everything's a little bit easier when you can breathe more easily, right? Okay, so stay where you are with that. I'm going to come back closer to the camera just so you can hear me a bit more clearly when we're doing this. You stay where you are. Breathing is a physiological exercise, an expansion and contraction of core muscles. Okay, so you're stretching and strengthening things whenever you're breathing. And by the way, you might hear me click and crack, right? Clicks and cracks and scrunchy bits are okay. You might have clicks and cracks too, you know, when you move through your wrists or through your ankles, you might get those bits, yeah? Okay, all right, I do too. Okay, and even when you move the neck side to side sometimes. You might get those little bits, right? And that's okay, even in the shoulders, right? Clicks and cracks and scrunchy bits are okay, as long as they're not forced or painful, okay? If you click and crack when you move, so be it. What are you gonna do, never move? Okay, but if you're clicking and cracking and there's scrunchy bits and that's chronically painful, okay, you should get checked out, right? That's the thing. So I'm not a doctor. Yoga's not a panacea for everything. Start to pay attention to yourself. If somebody that you cared about came to you describing how you feel right now, what would your advice be to them? Right? Start to talk to yourself like you were somebody worth caring about, worth loving. All right? And that is yoga. As much as all the acrobatic stuff, maybe more so. This mindset, this sense of you starting to value yourself. That is yoga, right? You deserve a rest as much as anybody else does. If at any point you need to stop, you need to take a break from lying down in this way, grab a drink, do that. You could hit pause on this and come back to it then, couldn't you? Drinking water, right? Have water with you as well. That's one of the more essential things that I should have said actually. So if you haven't got a drink of water, if you want to hit pause on this and go grab a drink of water, have it within arm's reach, do that, yeah? Okay, so whenever you're ready, we're coming back to the breath. You're still lying down. I'm just sitting here closer to the device so you can hear me a bit more clearly, right? So you're breathing in to the crown of the head. A sense of strength and focus, determination. Understanding that you are good enough, you are strong enough. Okay, this is mantra, the little positive affirmations, right? Like a rock to cling to in the storm. That's my own personal mantra. I am good enough, I am strong enough. Now, you might have your own, that's okay. Use that if that works better for you, as long as it's something that helps you through tough times. Okay? Whenever you start to feel like you're being overwhelmed, there's waves of things coming at you, and you feel like there's a bit too much to be fighting against the moment. The mantra is the rock to cling to. All storms pass eventually, right? Sometimes you just need to cling on. You know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know already. I'm kind of reminding you about it and giving you little basic tips to go back to you taking your own advice, isn't it? Really kind of what this is, right? So you can use that if you want. I am good enough, I am strong enough. That works especially well when you don't believe it. That's when it works best, okay? You repeat it until you get closer to the truth behind it, especially when you don't believe it. That's when you need it the most. And so you take your attention to your forehead. Soften the forehead. The forehead becomes smooth and the eyebrows begin to drift apart like two clouds separating to let some more light through. You can change what you're doing with your arms. You can adjust through the body if you need to. This is a process of you releasing unnecessary gripping. Right, that's in the body and in the mind. If you find yourself gripping, right, in the body or to a thought process where, you know, maybe you're thinking about what you think you should or should not be, or you're worried about what you think other people think you should or should not be, right? Ask yourself these questions. Is that useful? Is it necessary? Is it kind, right? Now, if it's not at least one of those things, why grip to it? We're trying to release that a little bit. Figuring out what's necessary so we can direct our energies towards that. Figuring out what's not necessary, okay, or useful or kind. And then stopping wasting our energy on that so you have more energy to deal with what you You do need to. What is useful, what's necessary, what's kind. It's really simple stuff. It's stuff that you know really deep down. Just kind of presenting it back to you here and going, remember this? Asking those questions, is it useful, is it necessary, is it kind? That's the start of the release of the gripping to those things, or maybe even the start of the loosening of that thing's grip on you. The first step towards making change is acknowledging that change is required, right? Or at least that's the start of the process of any conscious change, isn't it? You face what you have to face. You start to address it. We work from there. Instead of just ignoring and hoping that that thing just resolves itself by luck. Okay, we're taking some responsibility for what we're feeling. If something doesn't feel right and then you know that there's something that you can do about it, it's your responsibility to make that change, isn't it? And you know, when you start to do that, it's liberating, isn't it? It's not really me that's going to make the change for you, actually. I'm not going to make the biggest changes for you. You're going to do that. Okay, so that's enlightenment. Maybe to me, that's what enlightenment is. To understand that the power kind of lies within you. And it sounds really grand, and it is. But it's simple as well. At the same time, simplicity is genius, right? So, see if you can take your attention to your jaw and soften the jaw. The teeth are slightly separated behind your lips. Your lips are softly closed. Tongue rests gently towards the back of the mouth. You tilt your chin slightly towards your chest, not so you're making yourself uncomfortable, just so you can feel a little bit of a lengthening in the back of the neck. And as you lengthen the neck, you're lengthening your spine, right? Because your neck is part of your spine. So you can relieve pressure further down your back by relieving the muscles in the back of the neck, because those muscles are part of your back muscles. You can release tension further down your spine by releasing this neck, because the neck is part of the spine. It's called the cervical part of the spine. Respect the neck is what I'm saying, right? So you take your attention to the tops of your shoulders and see if you can draw the shoulders down and away from the ears a bit more, lengthening your ears away from your shoulders. How's that feel? Did you know that you didn't have to have your shoulders up around your ears like that all the time? Maybe you didn't. Okay, at this point I want to remind you that you don't spend the whole time with your head turned towards your device here. I want you to try to make sure your chin is lined up with your belly button, like so. Right? If you're spending your time with your head turned to one side all the time, you're going to be cricking your neck. So if you feel like you've been looking to the screen for a long time, whatever way you've been looking, I want you to roll your head the other way. Take a few breaths there. Okay, and then you're going to bring your chin back into the center. The chin in line with this midline. This is the midline of the body, if you didn't know, right? This line, the imaginary line that runs from the floor through the groin, through the navel, through the nose, right? Okay. So, take your attention to your upper back muscles. Can you draw the shoulder blades together a little bit more underneath you to see how that stretches you a little bit across the collarbone, and then just release that a little bit and find a happy middle ground where you're not stressing too much one way or the other with that. And you take your attention then to the muscles in between the ribs. See if you can soften those muscles a bit more. Focus on letting the breath flow a bit more freely now. So it's like you're mentally kind of taking a step back from all this stuff and just watching the breath breathe the body. And so you take your attention then to your lower back. Think about softening the lower back here. Pressing the lower back just a little bit more into the floor. And then releasing that. Play around with that a little bit. I'm going to show you what I mean in case you don't get it. Okay? So you're pressing the lower back down a little bit more. And then a little bit of a lift. Okay, you can play around with how that feels. And find that kind of happy middle ground. Okay, I'm going to come closer again just so you can hear me a bit more clearly. You stay lying down where you are if you can, and just relax and see if you can take the attention to your glutes. It's arguably the biggest muscle group in the body, your glutes, your buttocks, right? Okay, waste of your energy, big waste of your energy if you're leaving them switched on for no reason here. So ask those muscles to melt a little bit and see how that feels. And so you then take your attention to your hip flexors, the muscles on the front of your hips here. I'm pointing at them now if you didn't know what I was talking about. These muscles on the front of your hips here. And ask those muscles to soften a little bit. Those muscles tend to tighten when you're closing yourself up, when you're getting, ready to hide or protect yourself or coil yourself up like a spring in order to strike out, right? So it's related to fear and anger and frustration, the tightness in the hips here, right? So if you ask those muscles to lengthen, it's like you're hacking the brain and you're telling this brain it's safe here, I'm good, I'm safe and I'm warm and I'm allowed to relax, and the processes in the body start to change. You'll start to change on a cellular level. You'll start to break down what needs to be broken down inside. There's millions of processes going on here. You're actually healing and regenerating when you switch into this rest and digest mode. It sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? But look it up if you don't believe me. Switching from the sympathetic mode where you're in high alert, right, to rest and digest, the parasympathetic mode. And so you take your attention then to the muscles of the thighs, and you let the thigh muscles either hang off the bone or roll off the bone, whatever feels better to you, whatever image works better for you in your head. And that vitality flows down to the backs of your knees, and you follow that nourishment, those nutrients down to your calf muscles and the ankles and the tops of the feet and the toes. And now you're breathing in to the soles of your feet, a sense of strength and focus and determination. Understand that it takes determination to take this time for yourself, to say no to the 101 other things that are always being demanded of you from other people, or maybe even from that ego, that voice in your head that tells you you need to do more, you need to do more, right? And if you listen to that all the time, you just keep going till burnout, right? You deserve a rest, and it's strong. We're developing the strength to admit that you need a rest sometimes. That's a strength worth developing too. Otherwise, it's just foolhardy and you're going to burn out, right? So develop the strength to admit you need a rest sometimes. We can't do this all on our own. Nobody can, right? Everybody needs some support from time to time. You can think of it this way. The floor, the earth is supporting you. It's like you're being held and letting yourself be held in this position. Stop resisting that. So I want you to take your attention slowly through the body, from the crown of the head down towards the soles of the feet, bit by bit. When you find gripping, ask those muscles to gently melt just a little bit more. Ask nicely. You know you always get a better response in any relationship when you ask nicely versus demanding things, right? And we're going to take a little bit of movement back into the body when you feel ready. So when you're ready, you start to wriggle those toes a little bit. Now I'm just showing you here what I mean by that. You keep your legs on the floor here, your feet on the floor. You don't need to be looking at me if you get what I'm talking about, right? And then you can just wriggle those fingers and see how that feels. Take your time. There is no rush with this. And see if you can then rotate the ankles a little bit. I'm just lifting my feet to show you here, but you know, you keep your legs on the floor, just rotating through the ankles. One way and then the other, and you're not lifting the legs off the floor. I'm just lifting my legs here to show you, right? Okay, and then you're gonna rotate through those wrists, and you might get those clicks and cracks and those scrunchy bits. You probably hear me, right? Don't worry about it as long as it's not forced or painful. You're good. Okay. Usually just gas releasing between the joints or tendons flicking across bones, legacy of old injuries, or maybe just the way that you're built. If it is forced, painful, and something chronic that continues on a regular basis, you need to go get checked out, right? So take that time for you if you need that as well to, you know, contact a medical professional, right? And so you're going to roll the head gently from side to side. You're saying no to that unnecessary tension in the neck. The head rolls along the floor. Breathe. Yawn, sigh, or groan anytime you want to. And eventually you're going to bring that chin back to the midline. So the chin is in line with that belly button here, yeah? I'm going to go back over here to show you what I'm talking about with this next bit. Okay, so if you're not sure, have a look at what I'm saying here. All right, so we're going to keep those legs as they are. We're going to press those arms down by the sides of the body. Okay, if your legs are straight, I want you to slowly bend one leg at a time, bringing your heels in towards your sitting bones, your feet and your knees together. Draw the knees into the chest. Bring the hands around the shins, and on your next exhale, you're going to bring the forehead towards the knees towards the forehead. Breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Don't let your lower back lift here. Keep pressing that lower back down. You can always come back down with your shoulders and head if you need to. Stay with it if you can. And on your next exhale, you're going to bring the shoulders down, the head down. Okay, let's get the hands on the knees. Let's circle those knees in one direction together, and then the other. Okay, rock your knees into your chest and away from your chest. Take as long as you need with this. But when you're ready, you're going to bring your feet down. Your feet are going to be just a little bit wider than your hips here. Okay, we're going to do what I call windscreen wipers. Now, if you have issues with your hips, your knees, your ankles, whatever, get blocks or props and put them either side of you, at least to either side of you. If you're not sure, get them and put them there anyway. And have a look at what I'm saying here. We're going to let the knees go over to the right hand side, and you're looking to the left. And then the knees are going to go left, and you're going to look to the right. Okay, so do that a couple more times in your own time. If you wanted to pause and take a bit longer doing this now, it's really good. Take a bit longer to do this than I'm saying if you need to or want to. Okay, when you're ready, you bring your knees back into the center. I'm just going to shift these props out of the way. Okay, just so that I can talk to you. If you have low blood pressure, or you think you might do, you're going to roll onto your left hand side. Otherwise, you roll onto the right hand side, making a cushion for your head with your hands and your arms in a comfortable fetal position. Readjust if you need to till you find a relatively comfortable place for at least one good deep inhale and exhale in peace and quiet. Guys, if you wanted to at this point, you could just hit pause on this and stay here for a bit longer, right? But when you're ready, you're going to push the floor away. We're going to bring ourselves up to seated. I want you to find a relatively comfortable seated position. Okay? So you probably got to sit on the one prop, one, cushion at least. And then what you can also do is when you can get things and stack them up either side of you to support your legs, push them right in against you. If that makes you feel better, right? And just have a breath here. Hands in chin mudra, thumb and first finger lightly touching, other three fingers extending. Breathe. Guys, if this is too much for you, if it's too much to sit cross-legged, here's an alternative. It's called hero's pose. You get at least 3 props, right? I've got blocks and a cushion, but if you have no blocks, just stack up 3 or 4, maybe even 6 or 7 blocks and cushions and come like this, yeah? Alright, so I'm going to show you how the feet are at the back in case you don't know, right? I'm going to stack another cushion up just for luck. So here's what I've done. You go to all fours, you release the tops of your feet on the floor, and you're going to sit down onto that. Okay, so those are your options. Just taking a few moments to breathe. You might want to hit pause here and take those few moments. Have a little bit longer doing this. Okay, when you're ready, you can unpause it again. You are good enough, you are strong enough. Remember this. Okay, and on the next inhale, we're going to sweep those arms out and up, and you're gathering in the chi, the ki, and the prana, the strength and the focus that we've gained together. Let's take that with us. So on your next exhale, you're going to bring those hands through the midline, closing your eyes if you feel comfortable here. Float the thumbs in front of the forehead for kind thoughts. Float the thumbs in front of the lips then for kind words. And finally rest the thumbs in the heart center for kind actions. Kind thoughts, kind words, kind actions. Apply those things to yourself as well as to others. And just give yourself a little bow of acknowledgement. Thank you very much for joining me in this practice. Namaste.